Alright, so we are here back to this worksheet where we left off. We're editing the English translation here of Bhagavad-gita chapter 1 verse 2. And so we'll zoom in here again and continue talking about the word to. And the problem here is that there are many possibilities. Some translations are using translate this word as certainly or indeed, and treat it more or less like simply just like a filler, while others they translate to in a sense of the word but or however, which also is problematic. The first way of translating this indeed and like certainly or something like that, I don't see that really at all. So I can't vouch for that. The second way, using but instead, that has more, I think, credit to it, and we may see that if we pull out our Sanskrit composition book by Mr. Apte, the old Sanskrit expert, because he says that translating to as but is the most frequent translation of to. If we sort of take Sanskrit literature as a whole and like that, so if you sort of blindfolded yourself and just were going to answer the question, translate this to, and you didn't know anything about the context or anything, then you would probably guess, like statistically speaking, but is the safest bet. But of course, as we know, all bets are not always successful. So we need to look at the context. And what I'm seeing here when I'm reading this verse, and when I'm looking at the previous verse, I don't see but fitting in at all. I mean, in the previous verse, Dhritarashtra, he is posing a question. What happened at the battlefield, and So why would Sanjaya why would he start with however? I mean, that's not, or but. Why would, unless of course he had spoken before himself, saying something in opposition, and that he wants now to sort of negate or like that. So because that's like the opposition kind of clause. So like this was how it was happening before, but now did this or something like that. But I don't see Sanjaya saying anything that could be interpreted in like an opposition clause in contrast to a previous clause. I don't see that dynamics going on at all. And Dhritarashtra, he's not saying anything definite either. I mean, it's a question he was posing in the previous verse. So why would you answer a question with but? I think that's a little out of control, but So therefore, according to Apta, we have other variants of tu, and one of them is, like the one I've chosen here, is now. So just like you're beginning a story and now to something different, and now here's what happened, like that. So this is how I take it. So then my proposition is here that we start Sanjaya's recap here with what he has seen in his spiritual vision. So now, having seen the arrayed Pandava army, vyudham tu pandavanikam drstva. Right, so that is, and then we can add a comma here to denote that the clause 2 now is done. Alright, so then we have clause 3, and we have acaryam upsangamya. And here is pretty simple too. Perhaps the quick thing here is simply to do the similar thing what we did with the previous gerund, and that is that using the standardized having approached kind of reading. So we just follow that scheme there, and so we use the object of the participle here is acaryam because it's accusative. So having approached the teacher, is basically what it says then. Now like a very how should I say this? A very literary editor. he may perhaps decide that he wants to expand this, and he wants to explain what the teacher, who he is actually, and he may therefore write the name here of that teacher, Drona. But since we're doing a literal translation, I will not be doing that. So I will try to keep the Sanskrit what it actually says here. But we can keep this in mind that the teacher is Drona. All right, and then of course we should not have an initial H like that, but one like this. And what we also may note here that about gerunds is that although perhaps in most cases the having seen, the perfective kind of way of, like almost like a perfect participle here, active participle. So the idea is that although upsangamya very well may be translated like this, we also could translate it in a more like present active participle kind of way, just like approaching. You can do that sometimes with gerunds. So approaching the teacher, And that may be a way to think about the English translation here, that you have this contemporaneous kind of way of treating a gerund sometimes, to make it more, how should I say, alive perhaps, or also like from a dramatic viewpoint, better from that perspective. But those are our options, but I'd like to keep it simple, so but what one may, like for English reasons also, maybe it sounds perhaps better just saying approaching instead of having approached, because it becomes so perhaps tedious. Now having seen da da da, having approached da da da, may sound too unliterary, but again, I'm doing a literal translation here, so I'm keeping this. Alright, and then we're into the last clause, number 4 here. So he is speaking, someone is speaking. Abravit. Tada duryodhanah raja vacanam abravit. So he spoke. Oh, wrong pasting here. He spoke, right? And who is speaking? Who is speaking? I mean, who is speaking? And that person is, we can say, the king, right? And the king, who is that? Well, his name is Duryodhanah. So it's Duryodhanah the king as a phrase, and in English, of course, you don't need any commas here. You just line the words up in a construction like this. So Duryodhanah the king, and then we remove this because that's, it's superfluous in English. Duryodhanah the king spoke, and what did he speak? Well, he spoke a vacanam. He spoke a speech. So let's put speech in there. And of course it should be after. Spoke a speech. And now we only have tada left there, and at that time. And just as in Sanskrit, we sometimes like to put the adverbs at the beginning. So at that time, Duryodhana the king spoke a speech. And that speech is coming up in the next verses. So, yes. Right, so that's it. And I think I have not forgotten anything here. So we can zoom out perhaps to just look at the whole thing. So Sanjaya said, now having seen the arrayed Pandava army, having approached the teacher, at that time Duryodhana the king spoke a speech. Thank you very much for watching, and Hare Krishna.